organizing team today, the lovely Friday morning. So before I start, I would like to maybe introduce a little bit more about myself. My name is Long Lê, and so I'm a founder and also now currently the manager of the Rotten Grapes, which is a comedy group here in Hanoi. We do mostly improv comedy. And besides that, I also an event organizer. I organize TEDx events, and also so like a lot of time I was in a position of an organizer, and so this is actually very new for me to be a speaker at an event. So thank you for the organizing team to invite me. And today I'll be sharing on the topic of honesty, and with my look at honesty, with all that I do, which is comedy and organizing events. So before I start, I would like to ask you a question. Have you ever been into a situation, if you're a kid, have you been into a situation that you get a bad mark at school and you don't know whether you should tell your mom and dad about that? You can just ignore it and they wouldn't know about this. Should you tell the truth? Or more relatable for you, it would be, right now, if your girlfriend or your boyfriend bought something new and they ask you for opinion about that, and honestly, it doesn't look really that good on them. So should you tell the truth or should you lie about that? So those are the questions that I hope that maybe at the end of the talk we'll be able to answer those. So that's and also like you've been listening a lot of people been saying about like you can fake it until you make it. Is that a right strategy to do things? So we'll also find out about this by the end of the talk. So for me, what I see honesty is that I believe that is the best strategy because it would help you to make actually easier decision. It helps you to make better choices, and it also to keep you with your integrity. So those are what I learned from doing comedy and also organizing events. So first, let's talk about comedy first. Why am I talking about comedy when it comes to honesty? Because, well, oftentimes when people see comedy, they would see something absurd. They would see something that it is not real, that is not true. And that's probably what you would remember when you see a comedy scene, something absurd. But why is a comedy why comedy relates to honesty? So I'll start by telling you guys the story when I started comedy. So I started comedy 4 years ago when I was in my final year at university. At that time, I was a big comedy nerd, so I love comedy. And so at that time, stand-up was growing at that time. So I did try stand-up. And so I went to open mics a lot to try out my material. So what I did for stand-up was I sat at home and I wrote my jokes. That was a big mistake. So I ended up only having 5 minutes on stage, and a lot of them was not funny. A lot of awkward moments, and actually I see a lot of people laugh at those awkward moments, not at my jokes. So and then I come to realize the factor that is because so all the jokes that I wrote was not based on the truth. So I just sat at home and write the jokes. I remember my favorite jokes at that time was about me having more than one girlfriend. So I was saying like how difficult it is to have 2 girlfriends, and it wasn't based on the truth because even at that time I didn't even have a girlfriend. So like for me when I delivered those jokes, it felt I don't know. I think probably you guys felt this when you lie as well, but you felt really cold behind your back, and so I wasn't being comfortable on stage when I delivered those jokes. So that was my mistake with stand-up comedy. None of the jokes was based on the truth, right? Or even if you see that the comedian, they even if they don't lie, they actually saw it happen in real life before. So that's my story with stand-up. And then 3 years ago, I changed my way to approach comedy. I learned improv comedy. And so with improv comedy, this is the first book that I read. It's called Truth in Comedy, written by Shannon Harpen and Del Close. And Del Close is considered the father of modern comedy, and this book is considered a comedy Bible. All right, so that's the comedy Bible in this. So what this book says is that comedy based on truth is really really good, and just imagine the time that you being funniest, you laugh a lot. It's probably not the time when you was watching your favorite TV series or you're watching a comedy show. You laugh the hardest when you was being yourself with your friends having coffee. So this proves that when we being ourselves, we can be really really funny. And so this book changed my perspective on comedy and also on life as well. So that's the first book. I want to take you to the second book that I really like. This is one of the photo from the book, The Comedy Manual by UCB. So this book is considered the textbook of comedy. So there's more to learn from this as well. So okay, so let me tell you a little bit about how we construct comedy, right? And then you will see how honesty and the truth relate to this. So for a comedy scene, we have three parts. The first part is called the base reality. So when you do comedy, this is very important for you to establish a base reality. What it means by a base reality is the who, what, where, or basically it answers the question, what is the basic situation that we are in? So before you can establish anything funny, you have to make sure the audience understand what's going on stage. And for this part, it's really important for you to pick a base reality that everybody can relate to. So if we do comedy, we want to have a situation that everybody can see it and see themselves in, like say doctor, patients, or school, or mom and dad, or children and parents. So as opposed to you can do a base reality of like having the president discussing, but it's not going to be as funny as if you pick a relatable base reality such as what I just mentioned. So this is the first part of creating great comedy, creating good base reality. And what's great about this is that, so when you create, when you're doing this, I always say to my group is that, comedy is always based on experience and observation, not by your imagination. So there's no way, and that was the mistake that I made with my stand-up. There's no way that you can sit at home and think of something funny. You have to take it from real life. You know, that's exactly how stand-up comics structure their jokes. They would go outside and they recognize something funny in the world, and then they will portray that on stage. Exactly the same thing here with a improv or sketch comedy. We will take something that is funny outside, and then we portray that on stage, right? So it's very important to have the comedy based on the truth, right? So that is the first part of a comedy scene. You create a base reality, relatable base reality. And at one point when you create those things, you will then come across one thing we call that is the first unusual thing. And first unusual thing could consider the only lie in comedy. And that is the thing that stuck in your mind, which is when you think of comedy, you think of something absurd because of the first unusual thing. So this is the only lie that's allowed in a comedy scene. So when you have a base reality, like say school, and the first unusual thing is that maybe in that school, the student is somehow smarter than the teacher, and every time they get it right, the teacher gets mad. So that's the first unusual thing, and from that point, we will then, because of this, will then create a domino effect. It will destroy the whole base reality because of that one lie. And from that point, we're then playing the game, which is making the first unusual thing bigger. Enough about comedy theory. But so basically, we will then come across to the part where we have something unusual within that base reality, relatable base reality. And so this is very important for this part, for us to, as a comedian, to ground the scene. Because at this point, the first unusual thing will then get bigger and bigger. It gets more absurd and more absurd. And this is very important for a comedian to ground this, to make it believable. And your comedy can only be funny if it's believable. Otherwise, it's just going to be absurd, and no one can relate to this. So that is why we have a term. At this point, we have a term we call finding the truth in comedy, which is making your comedy believable again. So you can see the structure is that we start with something really relatable, right? We started with basically relatable, and then we come across something unusual. We're making that unusual bigger and somehow believable at the same time. So we get both effects of something funny and also believable at the same time. So this is very important that your comedy always based on the truth, right? So this is what I learned through comedy, and there's a lot more as well. So during this part of playing the game, you can see that now you can start to see that comedy is actually the art of telling the truth. There's a more truth in comedy than in drama. Now, if you see a drama, the character in drama is never exists in real life. A character in drama is oftentimes very perfect. You can see, so actually drama helps us to become who we want to be, right? To become your dream. But comedy tells us who we are, and that is why comedy is the art of telling the truth, and especially the truth about people. You can see oftentimes, even if the scene is about two talking cows, they still embody human behavior in those cows, and that's why it's funny. So comedy is the truth, is the art of telling the truth, especially the truth about people, and also that also makes the comedic training is a little bit more difficult than normal actor training, because in order to be a good comedic, you have to be able to find the truth in comedy. You have to be able to make a comedic character believable, and that's why it's a little bit harder to become a comedic actor than a normal actor. And you can oftentimes actually see this kind of funny, but comedians are oftentimes not attractive at all. Yes, because that actually how most normal people would look like. Comedian usually portray normal human being, right? Normal people in their daily life. So that's the reason why you would see not too attractive comedic actor, and actually more ridiculous they are, the funnier they become. So so this is the structure of a comedy scene, that to show you that to tell the truth is the core of comedy. You always start with the truth, and then you find the truth again. All right, so this is the picture of my group doing some comedy at my event, TEDx event. So yeah, and you can see that. So what I said before is that honesty make you make your decision making easier, and it is actually truth. And let's work on it from the comedy perspective once again. So in a comedy scene, usually we'll come across something we call that unusual, and from that point, improviser can only play at the top of their intelligence. What that means is that they have to react like how normal human being would react. All right. If you see someone who eat with their hands in a restaurant, right? So you would have to react like how normal people would react in that situation. You would then question yourself, why is this person doing this, right? And then maybe you get mad after a while, because why they keep doing this and being okay with that. So the same thing happen in comedy when we face that unusual thing. From now on, this one is actually a lot easier for us to improvise, because now our choice is limited to only truth choice. Now we can only play at the top of our intelligence to always react like how normal people would react in that situation. So that's why being honest is actually really easy for you to make decision at this point, because your choice is now limited to only tell the truth in that situation. And I find this really helpful for me when I improvise. I always tell the truth. I always be a guy who would react like how a normal human being would react in my scene. So if you consider improv is something that people just making it up on the spot, and they can be weird or anything about that, then it's just a half of the picture, right? The other half is that they have to react of how normal human being would react. That's the only way for their comedy to be funny again, not silly. right? So that's the thing that I learned from doing comedy, is that being honest can oftentimes make you the funniest guy uh, in the room. So if you want to be funny, the first thing you want to do is to be honest, and to recognize that in real life as well. To recognize a true human being, true people behavior in real life, and that's oftentimes the funniest thing that you can find. And so that is my story on my comedy. What I learned, that being honest can bring me far in the comedy scene. And here is more story about me with my event organizing experience. So I organized TEDx event. As you can see my T-shirt here. I'm doing a little bit marketing. Yes, you can see when I tell the truth, you already laugh a little bit, right? So I organized TEDx event here in Hanoi, and from that I come across a lot of story that I found that being honest was actually the right choice at that moment. So we had an incident I wanted to share with you with the speakers. So our process of getting a speaker on our TEDx stage, it's a little bit very weird, I would say. So we approach the speaker, and then we would then have to ask them for the idea first, and only if the idea fit the event, then we would then book them officially. So it's kind of weird, and we made a mistake for our recent event when we sent out our invitation. We said formal invitation, and then we wasn't being clear about the process, right? You have to submit your idea of what you want to share in the event first. And if we kind of think it fit the event, then you got invited officially. So there were about two speakers that got really bad because of that process. So they actually was being very excited because the news, oh my God, TEDx invited me to talk, right? So they wrote a whole page of ideas already. They spent a lot of effort into this, and thinking like they're gonna be talking at the event. But then 2 weeks later, when we have all the idea from the potential speaker that we contacted, we sent them a rejection email, and then they was really mad. And one of them posted on Facebook, and that got some traffic as well. And wow, at that time it was a big communication crisis for us. And and then I decided, okay, we gotta come clean this. I would apologize to them and tell the whole truth about why we made a mistake in writing our email, and we were not professionally communicate with the speakers. And so I think that's the best way to handle that situation, because so after talking to them in private and also in public as an apology, we would tell the public the whole process. And with that we appear a little bit unprofessional in front of the public. But I think that's the only way for us to fix that problem. We can actually, because the mistake we can somehow maybe find a way to lie about that, but then I don't see the point here. So I just told the truth, and it got some even more bad comments down below. But at least the speaker understood the situation, and we learned our lesson to communicate better the next time. So for that time I was being honest. Another time was with our check-in process. This is our check-in table at one of our events. As you can see, they're smiling because of the camera. Once again, telling the truth. But there's something going on in here as well. That one time that we could not check in one of our guests to the event, and we couldn't find the mistake here, and she was being very mad because the late check-in. So I told to my team, if you say that if you just say, oh, I understand this and we'll try to fix it, then it's not going to help. I'll just tell them, just be honest with the guest, saying I'm sorry, ma'am, we have no idea what's going on. So could you run us over the process where you bought the tickets and all that? So it actually helped us to understand and to understand the problem and then fix that, right? So oftentimes you can see that in this situation they will say, oh, I understand the situation, and then you will find a way to get them in. But for me, I would say to my volunteer that if you don't understand, then just say it to the guest. It's okay to tell the truth, right? It's okay to say that I don't understand this situation. Maybe you can run over me again, and because if they are mad about something, they're still going to be mad about that. But our key is to solve the problem, and the only way to solve the problem is to understand the problem, and to understand the problem, we have to come clean. We have to say the truth that we don't understand what's going on here, and just tell them the process. And then we got the result because she bought the ticket from someone else. So that's why we couldn't check in properly, because that person also checked in first, but we ended up having her joining as well. So that's another story about telling the truth. One thing about telling the truth about me organizing the event is that, so my TEDx event is a non-profit event. So all the money would go directly to the to produce the event. So I always publish the this is a little bit hard to see, but this is the budget management for my events, and I publish that. So from the when I started the event to when the event date, I would let this for the partners and also team members to see it. And after the event, I will publish this for every attendees to be to see how we use the money to organize the event. Yeah, we publish everything this, and even we recently we did an event for TEDx workshop where we share almost everything. We share all the budget management files that we for all the events that we organize. So I see that, yeah, because since this is non-profit and we have nothing to hide, so why not just publish and be transparent about this? So because of this, I realized that, hey, so being honest is good, but if you know that anything you do would then eventually somebody would then know it, then it would help you to keep your integrity, right? You understand my point here? Because I know that I will publish the budget management file and any process that we do to organize the event. So that keep me to always do the right thing, you know. So the mindset here is that when you know that somebody will then know that you are lying, so then it's not so good. So you should always be telling the truth. This kind of come off a little bit difficult to understand even now for me. But that's what I learned when organizing event, is that it's okay to tell the truth, even that somehow cause some problem. You know, some people would then get mad because we're being unprofessionally, but it's okay. An honest no is still better than a lying yes. So and the fact that you keep your mind of always telling the truth will help you to keep your integrity, right? You will then never make any mistake because you know that one day somebody will then find out about what you did, right? So that's my philosophy when it comes to organizing event, right? I always keep that, okay, everything I do right now, I will then let everybody know later on. So I would never do anything wrong. I would never do anything wrong, because one day all the information will be published, and especially in the 4.0 era right now, right? Every information will be published soon. So let's get back to the question at the beginning I asked. Should you lie or should you tell the truth in this situation, right? So I would say for me, I would tell the truth, because it's the easier thing that you can do, right? It's actually really hard to lie. You actually have to learn how to lie, right? And if you are not so good at this, so maybe just tell the truth. Right? Tell the truth is a lot easier, and it helps you to have better communication. So for me, I would tell the truth, because I know that if I don't tell the truth, then maybe later on they find out about that, it will be even worse. So I would tell the truth in this situation and all the situations that I do in my comedy. And about fake it until you make it, it's once again okay, because when you fake it, it's actually you are lying to yourself. And I think that it's okay to lie to yourself as long as you don't lie to others. Right, so that's my philosophy. So my challenge for you is that if you know that everything you do will be exposed later on, then what would you do? What would you act? Thank you.